Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Only Land Fan Show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Ajay Sharma. Ajay Sharma has been investing in vacant land since September of 2020. After working in the land business part-time for just 18 months, Ajay transitioned to full-time at the age of 23. Since then, he has completed several deals in all shapes and sizes, ranging from a few $1,000s in profits to a few $100,000 in profits. Ajay now runs a team with a COO and 7 acquisition staff that are doing consistent multi five-figure months. Ajay, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm living the dream, Kendall. How are you, my friend?
Doing great. Always a great day whenever you swing by the podcast. Always a pleasure to have you. So, we're talking about a very relevant, timely topic right now, and that is how to stop sucking at sales. And so, that's really important in today's market cycle because we're seeing things really slow down. And where the rubber meets the road is oftentimes those sales calls.
Totally.
So, before we jump into that, for those that are listening that may not be super familiar with your background, can you give us a little bit about how you got started in the land industry and how did you get to where you are today?
Totally. Great question, Kendall. So I started as a wee lad fresh out of college. Man, I got a week into corporate. I think it was actually 6 weeks into corporate when I realized this sucks. I can't control my income. I can't control my time. And I went down the real estate rabbit hole. Lo and behold, I found RE Tipster with our good friend Seth Williams,
Yep.
jumped into his stuff, took immediate action. 3 weeks later, had my first deal. 2 weeks after that, cashed a check, made 9 grand. And I was like, this rocks. You would have think that I was just off to the races. But fun side story here for anyone that's been around for a bit will laugh at this. I got that deal off of 82 mailers or 86 mailers or something ungodly small. And so I had these false expectations for how little mail you need to send out to get deals. Back then, I was like, oh, this is sweet, dude. I can send out like 40 bucks of mail and make 9 grand every day. So I'm
Sign me
like,
up.
yeah, I'm ready to scale. So I sent out, gosh, it was like 400 letters. And I was like, come on. And it hit slow and nothing happened. And then the holidays rolled around, which anybody who's done direct mail around the holidays knows it hits really slow around then and went on and on. And so it wasn't until February that I got my second deal. So it went September to February. And from there, it started picking up where I was buying one a month, one every other month, whatever. And then eventually started hitting some bigger deals, some good 5-figure deals. I hit my first multi 6-figure deal. And that cash injection allowed me to quit my job, invest in the company, ramp up marketing, and just start sprinting. And then it was hiring people, partnering up with my now COO and business partner, Ben. And yeah, man, love what we do today. We're slowly transitioning into bigger and bigger deals out of a lot of the smaller flip and wholesale type stuff. And it's an interesting market today. I'm excited to dive into this, but we still have a lot of sellers who are wanting 2021 prices and buyers that are like, hey, man, the rates are up. I can only do so much and they're running out of money. So we're in a really interesting market. Now, I hear of people closing deals on both sides every single day. So that's not me saying there aren't deals out there. We're doing deals all the time. There's still plenty out there. You just got to be really smart about how you're doing them now. So that's my background and where we're at today. Where do we want to go from here, Kendall?
Yeah, I love it. Definitely want to jump in to the sales topic. Before we do that, though, there was something in your story that you just told, in your origin story, if you will, that was very fascinating. It really made my ears perk up. So you said that you had already decided, okay, corporate is really not for me. You got a little bit of a proof of concept. That's rocking and rolling. You knew that you were going to leave corporate. I'm sure after that, if you were anything like me, like after that first deal that I got proof of concept, I'm like, I'm out. It's just a matter of time. Like I'm just ready to scale now. Like I know this works. But what you said was you did a multi six-figure deal, and that deal allowed you to leave your job, that cash injection, get things started. So, can you talk a little bit about how long was it that you were actually actively doing the land business before you got that type of deal that allowed you to step away from that corporate job?
Yeah, it was about a year in. So I started in September of 2020, and I think I closed on a majority on the sale side in October of the following year. So it was about 13 months when I like hit that big old swig. And when it's really funny, man. I remember being a cocky 23-year-old because you do one deal and you're like, oh man, I'm the shiz, right? You think you're so
Yeah.
cool. I remember sitting down with my banker because it was the first time I ever had so much money in my bank account that I was like, I'm not FDIC protected. It's only up to $250,000. And I remember being some 23-year-old being like, is my money safe here? At multi-billion-dollar bank. You know what I mean? So it's so funny looking back on it. And as I've gotten older, I understand why people invest in gold bars and nice cars and Rolexes. It's because at a certain point, your cash, if you're at a small bank, you might want to put it in a bigger bank. You might want to put it in some goods that hold their value. But yeah, it's funny, man. It took me a whole year. And once I did, I was in a whole different life, it felt like.
Yeah, it's really funny how, especially when you first start, when you do one deal, it's like all of the struggle, like once that deal is funded, it's like all of the struggle goes away. You completely forget that and you're like, this is it. I'm rich. I am rich forever. This one deal has made me rich forever. I will never struggle again until you struggle again. What I love about that though is that you had in your mind already, like a proof of concept. I know that this works. I know that I want to quit my job. And then you had to wait 13 months of actively doing the business before you even got to that point. And so, what were some things that helped you to continue when you couldn't see the evidence that it was working?
Yeah, man, I was like everybody else, just like a podcast maniac. So I remember, so I started in like the midst of COVID, right? So COVID started March 2020. And it's funny, now we refer to COVID as a time period rather than a virus or whatever it was. But
Yeah.
everybody totally interpreted that as a time period. I began during that time period. It was March 2020 when it happened. September 2020 is when things were very shut down. And so all I could do was like bike rides, go for walks, and work. And my corporate job was very like work-life balance, all that stuff they push on these kids these days. I'm like very much not of the opinion of balance. Don't get me wrong, I want you to have boundaries. Very different than balance. Like I'm like, dude, you're young, work your butt off, but whatever. So I had tons of balance and I was work from home. So no water cooler talk, no commute time. Guys, I had so much time in my day. And I was entry level, man. I wasn't solving any problems. I was crunching spreadsheets and building PowerPoints. Like it was a pretty easy gig, all things considered. So I remember just I would go for these 2 hour bike rides, these walks. I'd go for a 60-minute walk almost every day, 2 hour bike rides every other day. Anytime I'm in the car, I'm listening to RE Tipster. I was listening to Land MBA. A lot of the stuff back then wasn't out. There was no Only Land fans back then, Kendall.
Right.
Matt
That's
Project
right.
was begging for you, and you weren't there for him. You're here now, and that's all that
We're
matters.
here now. We're making it
Yeah.
up. We're making it up to you.
We're here now. Those are the two I really lived off of back in the day. And it just, I kept hearing these guys saying, yep, we're making 250, 500, 750. These guys are just making money. And so I'm like, these guys can do it. I can figure it out. It cannot be that complicated, right? And it's as long as you have hope, which I got from hearing people doing the thing, you can keep on keeping on.
Yeah, that is huge. That concept of just get around people that are doing what you want to do. That will keep you more motivated than anything at all. Being able to see that bringing that dream into your reality of that is happening every day for these flesh and blood people that I can talk to and that I can see and hear. So huge, so huge. I love this. Now, we've had, when you entered the market, it was, like you said, it was a little bit of a different marketplace than where we are today, right? So I'm sure you've seen in your career thus far a huge amount of changes. Can you talk a little bit about what is the biggest difference today in the land space compared to when you first started?
Yep, such a good question, Kendall. I think my brain takes so many different like parallels that I could go down with this question. I think I'm a big nerd. I'm going to tell everybody that right now. If you're not a nerd or you don't like hearing nerds talk about stuff, you're welcome to tune out. But I'm a big nerd. So I'm a nerd out for a second. The biggest thing that's changed in this business is how much it costs to arbitrage attention. And what I mean by that is like marketing is really just arbitraging attention with your avatar and driving a call to action, right? And so I set out a bunch of direct mail. Back in the day, I could do that, and enough people would pay attention to it and then follow the call to action in my marketing that would then call me, email me, whatever drive call that I would make them do. Back then, gosh, Kendall, in 2020, 2021, I feel like you'd consistently get like a 30x ROAS, right? If I spent $1,000 on mail, 2,000 letters, I get a 30 grand deal every day of my life. So easy, right? Now it's just not the reality. Like we sent out 60,000 units of mail earlier this year, and it was the cheapest form of mail we could. We found the cheapest vendor in the world. I think they were named Redstone or something. It was like 47 cents for a big postcard. And we got like a 6x ROAS on our first 30,000 unit letters send out campaign. And I think we got 0 on our side. I think we skunked on the second 30,000 units, which is crazy. And guys, like we are maniacal about following up with our leads and making offers, and we'll even double close. So like when you think about that, man, it's just the market's changed a bit. Now, given these are competitive markets, these are Florida, Texas, Colorado, these are really common investor areas. Competition doesn't scare me because we're good at what we do, but man, it's just crazy. Because of that, we've arbitraged on cheaper forms of marketing, cold calling. We've done SMS, we've done ringless voicemails. And there's different ways to get it done, but man, the qualification changed. Anyways, all that to say, man, people just aren't paying attention to us as much on the front end. And then on the back end, there's less buyers, man. All the money dried up. COVID was just raining cash when they were printing $3 trillion for a year. And so it was super easy to find buyers. I remember, man, I thought I invented fire. I was like, dude, I would send out 2,000 letters. I'd get a deal, and it'd be a buy at 7,500, sell at 28,000. And I'm like, oh man, easy. So I'd send that out, I'd get the deal, and then I'd throw it up on the market. And within 30 days, I had a full cash offer for exactly what I wanted. And I was like, I'm a genius. I'm so smart. Right? It's funny, man. Like you just think you're walking on water early in this stuff when I think Mark Cuban's got a good expression on this. He says everyone's a genius in a bull market. And so it's so funny, man. If I knew 10% of what I know now back then, it's like I missed the boat. Like I could have, my net worth could be like 30x what it is right now. But man, real estate cycles come and go, right? They come and go.
That's right. That's right. You'll be well equipped for the next one.
I'll be ready for the next one, baby.
That's it. So Ajay, with that in mind, you mentioned this at the very beginning of our conversation today, that sellers are expecting just ridiculous amounts for their property, and buyers obviously are not paying that. And so let's get into, how do you handle sales calls when sellers have unreasonable expectations on what their property is worth?
Totally. So I kick him in the teeth. No, I'm just kidding.
Just straight in the mouth.
Yeah. So it depends, man, is the short answer. And that's when you're talking to a real business person, is if they give you the answer, it depends, because that either they have no clue and none of us do, or there's a bunch of different variables in play, which is what's going on here. And guys, if you don't know, like Kendall and I are good buddies. So I pull his leg and joke around a lot when we're doing these. I like to keep it fun and lighthearted. These are heavy topics, right? So we're talking about acquisitions. Let's buy more deals, right? When sellers have unrealistic expectations, what do we need to do? Man, it really comes down to, how do we set good expectations on a call? How do we make sure we get sellers like real would sell for prices? And then how do we have good negotiation talk tracks and good sales process to get contracts signed? Because that's a desired outcome, is a contract, which leads to a deal. And to get contracts, you need to make offers. And to make offers, you need leads, right? And so you got to know your stuff. I've talked about these metrics before. If you haven't had them, I did a great call with, sorry, the ice cream man is outside. And I was like, what is that?
Do you want to pause so you can go get some ice cream? Or
yeah. And then can I borrow $5, man? I did a great call with Kendall a few episodes back, if you go look it up. But so I'm not going to go into all that lead management stuff. What it gets to, though, is like when I'm talking to a seller, man, there's only 4 types of reasons that a seller won't work with me. Okay. There's 4 main objections. And that's really what I want to be diving into today. Now, here's a good distinction. I learned this from my good friend, Alex Hormozy. I've been making that joke a lot because Chris Williamson says that often. I don't know if you guys follow any of his stuff, but this other YouTuber made a parody video of him and it was really funny. So I've been dropping it a lot more and stuff. I'll be like, oh yeah, my good friend, Alex Hormozy, except he actually knows him and I don't, is the difference. But now with that said, Hormozy says that it's an obstacle before you do the price drop and it's an objection after. Okay. And it's really important we try to isolate as much information before the price drop, because it's easier to fight against it versus people are going to throw other like guards and things at you after the price drop if it's really just price and people have a hard time saying no. Okay. So With that said, what this looks like is there's 4 types of objections. Okay. Number 1 is certainty, right? And what that means is, does the seller believe that they're going to get what you're telling them you're going to get? Right. If you are an Alex Hormozy fan, in his value equation, the variable there is the customer's perceived likelihood of achievement. Are they going to get the thing you're promising them? Kendall, I'll give you 30 G's. Do you believe me? If you don't, you're probably not going to work with me. And so the way we do that is, number 1, you need to establish really good rapport. You do that by asking good questions. Sound like you know what you're talking about. I do a lot of call reviews, and when I listen to people and they're like, so Kendall, tell me, I'm like, dude, why do you sound like that, bro? Just write down 20 questions before you hop on the call so you have something to go back to. And folks that are live, I'm sorry you had to see the inside of my mouth for that. all that
It was
said,
worth it.
we want to drive certainty. Okay. You do that by establishing authority. You can establish authority by asking really good questions on the front end. Okay. Number 2 is in uncertainty is, before my pitch, I like to reestablish authority. And what I mean by that is, during that pitch, during that pitch, which is before the offer, right? We go through a script that everybody's heard before at some level. And that's the whole, hey, just so you know, we don't work with realtors, so there's no commission costs. We close in whatever days, blah, 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 all that fun jazz. We sneak in there is how much business we've done. And so we say we bought and sold over 100 properties last year. I'm not going to lie, it's a little inflated. And what I mean by that is, we did wholesale a portfolio of 40 properties in Castilla County, Colorado. And so we bought 40 and sold 40. And so that's 80 right there. So I just like to be transparent with the audience here. But we like to say we bought and sold over 100 properties last year, because it's a good number. It's a cool number all over the country. We work with trusted title companies, like all that type of stuff, right? You want to sound like a legit person that they can look up. So that's how we establish certainty, so they have perceived likelihood of achievement. Okay. So that's what I'm doing there to overcome certainty. Certainty is the hardest objection to overcome after a price drop. Okay. So it's really important you do that as much as possible ahead of time, by talking them through process, by talking them through what the future looks like. Here's another thing. I learned this from my sales trainer, Jenny Hudspeth. She says that uncertainty breeds fear, and fear breeds inaction. And so that's when your sellers just don't do stuff. They don't pick up the phone. They don't sign contracts. They don't believe that they can work with you because they don't know what's going to happen. So they're scared, and scared fear drives inaction. All right. So all of that covers our certainty objection. Kendall, is it cool if I keep going, or?
Yeah, I have a quick question to drill down into that. So you said part of this overcoming the certainty objection before it's even an actual objection is to ask really good questions on the front end. So can you give us some examples of what are really good questions? Hey, land fans, looking for your tribe of serious land investors? Join thousands of your fellow land lovers in the Only Land Fans Facebook group. We're talking real deals, expert strategies, and game-changing connections you won't find anywhere else. This isn't just another real estate group. This is the community where land investors come to level up. Join us at onlylandfansgroup.com and join the conversation today. That's onlylandfansgroup.com. See you there.
I could. Yeah, I'm being a jackwagon. Definitely. So, like, really easy questions. Number 1 is, we like to ask an open-ended question when we start with our sellers. Typically, it would be something like, what can you tell me about the property I don't already know? What is something about the property you wouldn't know until you had boots out there, right? Just like stuff that like a normal person who buys and sells land would ask, right? Even to the degree of, hey, do you know what utility company is like the water out there? Is that, what water line is it? Do you know the utility company? No, that's the thing. Like, somebody would ask if they intended on using the property. So you just sound legit when you start speaking the language that we speak with each other. We all talk about it with other investors, and then we sound like random weirdos when we're talking to our sellers for some reason.
Yeah. Okay. So
do that.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. Can you give us an example of some bad questions that you hear in these call reviews when people are talking to sellers?
Oh, you're based in South Carolina. How's the weather out there? That's my least favorite one when I hear it, man. People are trying to make small talk. No, but dude, if you're calling me about my property, stop asking me about the weather. Okay. Stupid questions that don't have anything to do with the property. Now, don't get me wrong. If you hear a dog bark, fine, talk about the dog. If you hear, and like, guys, I've done it. Okay. So I say that as somebody who has definitely asked about the weather, who has definitely done all the wrong things. Okay. I'm saying this on the other side where I can confidently tell you when people sell me stuff and they ask me stupid questions, I can sniff it out. And the better you get at sales, the more you're like, oh my God, why would you do that? And so Matthew said, South Carolina weather's crazy, isn't it, Matthew? You actually do get hurricanes. Some people don't believe that, but
It's true. It's
Myrtle
true.
Beach is super cool. Charleston has a unique culture. Nobody cares when they want to sell their property. Okay.
Yeah. So another thing that I hear a lot, Ajay, in calls that I listen to is investors asking like a litany of due diligence questions. Like, does it have road access? Do you like all of this stuff? What are your thoughts on that, on asking the 20 questions of due diligence? Does it actually build rapport? What's your experience with that? How deep do you go into those types of questions?
Great question, Kendall. What I like to say is I do 2 calls, right? It's a 2 call close. My
Yep.
lead manager call, which is call one, is typically 80% about the property. So we will ask questions like that, but it's while I'm looking at land ID, dude. And so I'm sitting there looking at the property and I'm like, hey, man, I'm seeing it on Southwest 180th Street here. Is that road paved or gravel? I can't tell just based on my computer here. Just be real with them. Again, I haven't walked the dirt yet. Tell them that. Hey, man, we reached out to a couple of different property owners. So I'm not sure which one this is. I personally have not walked this property yet. Cool. All of that true. Integrity. They're going to know that, right? If I'm like, hey, man, I'm looking at this on my computer here. I can't tell what the road is. Is that asphalt, gravel, pavement? What do you know about it? See how
Yeah.
different it is than does it have access?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
a really good point because we've had this conversation before about when do you start looking at the property? When do you start that at very initial phase of due diligence? I like that you started on the call. Do you look at the properties before you get on these initial calls?
totally.
So you're looking at all of the properties before you do that initial call with them,
But like
or
somebody on my team is, I should say. Like,
someone on the team is okay.
yeah,
Got it. Got it.
I personally am not looking at every property that hits our pipeline. I don't.
Yes. Yes.
But somebody on my team is because for us, we eliminate bad leads as fast as possible. And so it takes me 60 seconds on land ID to see that a property is fully covered in wetlands and doesn't have a road. I'd much rather get that out of the way quickly. And so I'm going to do that. And cool, ruled out, shoot them a text or whatever and let them know it doesn't fit our criteria. Bada bing, bada boom, we're done. Easy.
Wait a minute, Ajay. Are you saying that you are not trying to turn every single lead into a deal? How are you making money doing that?
Kendall, when I do deals, they actually have buyers on the other side of them.
Oh,
Buyers
okay.
are who make us money at the end of the day.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So Ashton asked a really good question. When you say bad lead, what is the first thing that comes to mind? How do you qualify something as a bad lead?
Great question, Ashton. So we got 2 types of leads. Also, what's up to my guy Mike? Saw you just hopped on, dude. So we've got 2 types of ways we can look at a lead to qualify slash disqualify. Okay. Number one, property. Really simple. What are my disqualifiers is the question I want to ask, right? If I'm in Florida and a property is covered in wetland and it's a 1/4 acre lot, it's not a lot I can do with that, man. Again, you got to know your areas. If I'm in Arizona and I've got floodplain, you can't really build on floodplain. So I got to look at the buildable area and be mindful of that, right? If I am in Colorado and the property is the side of a mountain, I don't know that many rock climbers that want to buy this thing, man. I do know my buddy Mayor Shemtov actually sold a property. I think his first property ever was the side of a mountain or second. I can't remember now. But so there are buyers out there for everything. I actually sold a property underwater in the Keys once. That's a story for a different day. But the point being, it took me a year to sell that thing. It was a very slow sale because there's not a big buyer pool out there. What was your question, Kendall? Bad leads? Okay, so that's the property. Number 2, and I like alliteration and assonance and rhyming and a bunch of fooey little kid stuff because I'm a 6-year-old at heart. Property and person. Okay, we've got double P's. That's how I can disqualify. What type of person can I disqualify for? Somebody that doesn't actually own the property. That's a good one. Unless they have claim to it. If it's like the heir of the property, then obviously we're looking at a probate. It's a different story. But like if it's like, oh, it's my brother's, but he hasn't been around in a while, and so I'm going to sell it. I'm like, no, you're not. That's
That's
not.
called fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a quick claim deed, Kendall. Come on.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Proceed.
Oh my gosh. So
Sure.
undivided interests are another one. I know if you specialize in that type of stuff, like Logan Fulmer, you can do that, right? I don't. And oftentimes, if I'm looking at a 30 grand property, I'm not going to dive into an undivided interest, right? Or a divided interest. Either one. poo-poo. Okay. So figure out what your disqualifiers are based on the property, based on the person, and get rid of them before you ever pick up the phone and talk to them. Does that make sense, Ashton? Sweet. Love it.
Yeah, really good stuff. All right, sorry to derail the conversation. So we're talking about the four objections, certainty. You've given us a really good overview of that. What's the next one?
What's the next one? Come on, Kendall. No, I'm just kidding. The two, there's a few of them, man. So there's four total, and I get so excited about a couple. Let's dive into price because that's the most
Okay.
common one everybody runs into. It's
Yeah.
price. Okay. If we could offer every seller $1 billion for their poo-poo properties, we'd get a lot more deals, but they just wouldn't be deals. So like price, super common objection, probably the most common. But here's what this looks like. Again, we like two call closes. In that first call, my desired outcome is an asking price from the seller. That's what I consider the close, is an asking price and a booked appointment for my closing appointment where I'm going to make my offer and try to get the deal. Okay. So on call number one, I get that asking price. The reason for that is I'm the triple dial king. I appreciate you, Blake. The reason for that is we personally saw a number of deals where our seller volunteered an asking price in a range that we could definitely do a deal. And so we just went after those leads so much more aggressively, man. Versus if you don't know, you're going to treat it like every other ambiguous lead and it could take the back burner pretty quickly. And because of that, I just always want the asking price out of that first call in case the one out of 100 deals where some seller is like, yeah, I'll take 30 grand for my 100 grand property. And I'm like, whoa, why are you money tomorrow? And so obviously, but
Let me play devil's advocate really
please.
quickly. So, what happens in those other 99 where we've all seen this, where the sellers are like, yes, I would 115,000 for my $30,000 lot. How do you handle those types? Because we're laughing, but I know that you had to come across these
Oh,
because
for
we
sure.
come across these sellers that are like, oh, because we're marketing to off-market deals, these are people that have not raised their hands yet. And so we have contacted them. And so the sellers are thinking, number one, property always goes up in value, right? That's a big one that sellers love to hold on to. It's land. They're not making any more of it. It's super valuable, blah, 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 all the good stuff. And then you've reached out to me. So I may have bought this property. The reason why I'm holding on to it is because I'm waiting for it to appreciate. And now someone is out of the blue, reached out to me, and now they want to buy my property. Now it's my payday. And so how do you manage expectations when they say, yes, I'd like 115,000 for my property and it's worth 20 or 30? How do you manage expectations at that? How do you walk it back from 100,000 over? Does that make sense? Listen up, land fans. This is huge. We're bringing you the one and only Pace Morby, star of A&E's Triple Digit Flip and the mastermind behind $450 million in real estate deals. He's coming to our virtual meetup on Thursday, December 5th to share how he's applying his creative financing genius to land deals. Head to olfmeetup.com to save your spot today. That's olfmeetup.com. This is the kind of opportunity that changes everything.
Make a lot of sense, Kendall. Remember, we're not talking offers on the first call. And it's
Yeah.
really important you set that expectation. Hey, Kendall, on this call, I just want to ask you a couple of questions, get some info out of you, and set an appointment for our acquisitions manager, Ajay. On this call, I'm not going to be able to make you an offer. I don't have that info in front of me. And frankly, we need this information to get there. So this should take about 10 minutes. Do you have any questions about that? No? Awesome. Let's dive in. That way, they're not like, what's your offer? You called me, right? I hate getting that. So I pre-frame it. I get ahead of it. And when I get ahead of it, they can't do that to me. And if they do, I'll be like, hey, man, totally get it. I want my offer too. That being said, and then you just dive right in with a question. What can you tell me about the property? Hey, I'm looking at the road here. Can you help me understand? Right. So it's like that type of stuff. You just dive right in. Anyways, that's all call one. Asking price is my ammunition. Okay. I was just talking to Mike actually about this the other day where I was like, dude, list price doesn't matter. It's a made up number. It's food. It doesn't exist. Okay. List price, asking price. I don't care about any of that stuff, man. I got money. And I don't mean like I got money and you don't. I just mean like, guys, like I'm offering money to the marketplace. And if we're being honest, I don't know, last time you checked out the data, 50% of Americans are living to paycheck and have less than $500 in their bank account. Okay. And so these sellers can act all high and mighty as long as they want. But man, at the end of the day, is if you make real cash offers to humans that have life situations, like guys, if somebody just called you up and offered you 50 grand, I promise most of us here, even as investors, can do something with it. Like 50 grand is not an insignificant amount of money. I can do a lot of stuff. Dude, I can live off 50 grand a year. Not well, but enough,
You
right?
could. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially like post tax. I guess you'd be taxed on the money, whatever. Okay. The point being, like, you could, it's a decent sum of money that would do something in most people's lives. Okay. First thing is you need to internally believe that people actually will take lowball offers. And if you don't, it's just going to be so much harder. If you truly don't believe what you're doing is legit or a service, you're not going to come off with conviction. Like you're going to seem squeamish when you do make these offers. Okay. And so here's what that looks like is, listen, there's a bunch of different things that go into a price obstacle ahead of time and then the actual objection later. Okay. And we're going to talk about what that looks like. Agreed. It is all about confidence, Ashton. So that's going to look like is once I get closer to price. Okay. I always want to shift blame at first. It's not a concept that I have not spoken about before. And so that can look like a couple different things. The most common one that I bring up is, let's say the seller wants 115. I want 100. Okay. Or excuse me, it's worth 100. Okay. Let's say that's the gap. That's not an uncommon scenario, right? I think you said it was worth 30. Maybe let's just play with my numbers because it's easier to follow. All right. So I know as an investor, I can offer what 40 to 50 and flip it all day long. And so I'm going to say, hey, Kendall. So guys, really important here. The reason I like to shift blame on the first offer is because I don't want to get hung up on. Okay. If I get hung up on, which happens a lot, if I get hung up on, I can't work through stuff with them. I can't work through objections. I can't sniff out if that's really all they need. Okay. So on my first offer, I'm going to say something like, hey, Kendall, I'm seeing investors in the area are paying between 40 and 50,000 for properties like these. And guys, I like that verbiage because it's authentic. I don't care what asset class, I don't care what state, what area. Every single type of real estate somewhere is being bought for 40 to 50 cents on the dollar because of some circumstance. Okay. And so I know I'm being authentic when I say I see investors in the area are paying between $40,000 and $50,000. All right. Blake said giving a verbal range changed my entire business. Dude, love to hear that. Guys, that is straight from the Zoom. I can't make that stuff up. All right. This stuff works. All right. And I use this. That's, hey, I'm seeing investors in the area are paying between 40 and 50,000. What would you say to one of those investors if they made an offer like that? I didn't make the offer yet. Okay. Now I'm going to later, but that's just the sniff test. So I'm trying to see what's going on. Now I will say before that, before I get there, okay, something I do want to do is uncover some level of motivation, right? Some of the things we ask is we go through like a past, present, future framework. I walked everybody through that on the last sales training we did at Only Land Fan, so I don't want to go over it again on this episode. Kendall, if you got that episode number, feel free to plug it here, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
It'll be in the show notes. We'll put a link.
It'll be in the show notes. Perfect. Love it. So I bring that up to say earlier in that past, present, future, in one of those future questions, I ask, hey, so once you sell the property, I'm trying to get them to sell the property mentally. Would you be investing in another property or what would you plan to do? Would you take your wife on a fun vacation? Would you do anything cool? Try to just get the wheels turning. Like the thing about Americans is we just freaking love to spend money, man. We just love it. And so guys, we know that about every American. Why is the seller going to be any different? Go get them to spend the 50 grand. And then when you make the offer later, bring it back up. And so later on, when you're having a price discussion, hey, listen, Kendall, I understand this is probably less than you were looking for, man. But you did mention earlier you were really hoping to take the wife and kids to Disney World. And you could do that next month if we could work something out. Let me ask you, are you okay not taking this vacation for another 3-4 years? Just sit with it in silence, man. They already said no to you, right? We try to sniff out emotional stuff ahead of time. I talked about a lot of that stuff in the last episode. Once we get into the actual negotiation talk track, though, here's what it looks like for me. Is I like to anchor based on blaming it on somebody else. So I give a ranged anchor, and now they understand, okay, investors are paying the area, and a lot of times you're going to get right, because sellers just, for whatever reason, laugh at us.
Yeah. Because every investor changes their mind once they're laughed at. I don't know about you, but the minute I hear laughter, I'm like, oh, maybe I should change my offer.
Yeah, it makes you feel horrible about yourself as well.
Horrible. Oh my gosh.
Guys, this is
Yeah.
a great business. If you haven't started yet, I promise it actually is super fun. There are just pieces about this business that aren't, like when sellers are mean and laughing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Man, it's just the reality of it. And so that happens. People say I tell them to kick rocks. I'd hang up on them. You get all kinds of stuff. And immediately, what I'm going to do is just see where I can get them down to. Okay. And how I do that is I start around their asking price. And listen, if it's like way higher than even the property's worth, I'm not going to bring it back up unless they bring up an even higher number. So I only bring up their asking price again if it serves me in some way. So again, it's ammunition. I don't need to use it. And so I'd be like, hey, totally makes sense, Kendall. And listen, man, like we're looking at a couple properties in the area. I don't know everything, man. I could be off on this. Can I ask what number did you have in your mind? If this is laughable, obviously something's not. So what's the number you got in mind? And he'll be like, oh, I want at least 115 for it. So they always sound real tough and right, want to be cool. And so I'm like, 115. Got it, man. Can you help me understand, like, where'd you get that number? Get them to talk about it. There's always a neighbor. My neighbor down the way listed his, it's always an on-market listing, listed his at 275 and it's double the acreage. And so mine's worth it. I'm like, dude, just all this is wrong in how you evaluated what this is worth. But fine, I'll play your game. And so a couple of things that I'll do is I'll always start by just what I call looping the seller down. Okay. And I call it a loop because I just keep going through the same thing over and over again. I just did a challenge where I raced my buddy Alan Quintero. Alan, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We both went live on Instagram and raced to see who could get a deal first. And I got just like a cheap double closing with 10 grand in margin on it. But one of the cold calls I did, I looped this guy down from 10,000 an acre to being willing to look at an offer at 4 to 5 an acre. And it's actually pretty sick because it like started at 10, said it was his rock bottom. And then I could tell he was BSing. So I went ahead and just asked more questions for 5 minutes and then came back to the range. So you can always come back to it. But anyways, here's what this stuff looks like. So I make my range. I get laughed at. Fine. I go to his, what's your asking price? He says 115. Now, guys, if you follow Jeremy Lee Minor at all, he talks a lot about pace, toning, tonality, all that type of stuff. And in that vein, if we know, we got to go negative, man. We got to make the seller feel bad. And so I'm going to say stuff like, okay, got it. Listen, like you wouldn't even consider an offer below 115. So you wouldn't even look at an offer under that. A lot of times you're going to get something where it's, what's your offer? Hey, man, I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm just trying to see if there's somewhere we can find a deal. Don't give them your number yet. That's giving them power. All right. And I'm going to start them at about 115. And sorry, I think my wife's on the phone. And I was like, is she being attacked downstairs? I'm going to start at 115, be like, got it. So you wouldn't consider anything lower than that. And be like, I'd consider, okay, got it. Listen, man, just honestly, the more you tell me, the more I can figure out whether we can work together. What does that look like? Okay, if you could come up to 100, I'd probably consider it. 100. Okay. And that's the lowest you would go. Like you wouldn't consider a penny under 100. And it'd be like, okay, what's your offer? And I said, man, I'm not entirely sure yet. And again, guys, I swear to God, I just keep looping and make it sound a little different each time. Okay. Until you like really get to where they're at. And so this stuff works too. I promise you it works. Not every time. But again, like guys, in this business, we're going to do business with minority of our leads, right? If you're doing flip prices, your closing rate, like your closing rate's going to be anywhere between 5 and 20%. Okay. As long as you're making offers on every single property owner. So it's 1 in 20, 1 in 10 leads, somewhere in there, 1 in 5 if you're really good and it's really qualified lead. But generally speaking, it's always going to be a minority of business owners. So keep that in mind. We're not going to close everyone. What we're trying to do here is boost the odds of who we can do business with. And I can do that by just getting lower numbers out of people. And so it's, oh, I'm at 100. Okay, got it. And so you wouldn't even look at an offer if I was under 100. I would look at it. Okay. Like how low of an offer would you look at, you think? Would you look at something in the 60 range, you think? No, that's probably a little too low. Got it. And is that like way off or how low? And just like sniff things out, guys. Like sniff it out. Get them as low as you can before, listen, dude, like 80 is my rock bottom. And I'm like, sweet, dude, we just got from 115 to 80. Now, I'm not saying here's the margin. Now I'm going to bring up emotional ammunition. Right? Where I'm like, okay, 80. What would you do with 80,000 bucks? I would go do blah, 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 blah. How much money does that cost? 30,000 and just put the rest in savings. Yeah. Okay. If you could just get a little bit less in savings and still go do that stuff, would that mean anything to you? How soon do you want to do that stuff? Get them to spend the money. Okay. And now eventually I'm going to loop back to me and my asking price. Kendall, listen, man, I wish I could get close to this 80. I don't know that we're going to be able to get there from what I'm seeing. I mentioned to you earlier, most investors are paying between 40 and 50. I could probably get an approval on that higher end. If I were to get you an offer for $50,000, is that something you'd consider? And listen, guys, they're going to say no most of the time. Okay. Again, we're trying to boost the odds of overcoming a price objection. I'm not just always going to do it. But when you go that route, you're going to get emotional. Like people buy and sell on emotion. Okay. We sell money at the end of the day and convenience. All right. When we're doing acquisitions, we sell money. When we're doing dispositions, we sell land. And we like to tell people we sell land for a living, but we sell money. Okay. And so keep that in mind. And because we sell money, we should know what our seller would do with the money. Makes sense. If I were selling a car, I'd probably want to know what the seller is going to do with the car. Why don't we do that when we're doing acquisitions? Right. Yeah, that's a lot of the stuff that we're using to consistently lock up deals on the front end. It works. I do it myself. Like I jumped back into cold calls, RVMs, text message leads myself just to make sure. Because guys, like I talk about the stuff on the internet, and I don't want to be the guy that preaches stuff that like doesn't work because I did it 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So I was doing this stuff 2 weeks ago. I was doing this stuff last week. You know what I mean? I do this stuff when I go to meetups and talk to random developers. Like it's all the same at the end of the day. So Kendall, what you got, my friend?
Yeah, you made a really good distinction, and I don't know how many people caught it, but you said in the language, you said, if I could get you an offer for 50,000. And immediately I think about the way that you frame this is that you're not the decision maker, right? So they are not playing hardball with you. You are just a go between the decision makers. So it keeps the line of communication open, right? So they can't just shut you down because you won't change your mind. You're trying to continue to have a conversation. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yep. So this is so good, man. I train my team on this concept where I say, so my acquisition manager's name is Veronica. I tell her almost, I was going to say daily. That's not true. I don't meet with her daily, at least weekly. Veronica, we want the seller to think you and them are on the same team working towards the same goal. Okay. If we're in a negotiation and they feel like they're being negotiated against, especially men like to win. Okay, I'm not saying women don't like to win. I'm just saying men have the worst egos ever about anything. And as soon as you attack their ego, they're not going to work with you, even if you offered them $1 million now. Okay.
Yeah.
So because of that, we need to make them think we're working together. And I can do that by knowing what their goals are and trying to serve their goals and by fighting with my boss or my wife or whoever I run the business with to try to get you the max offer. And yeah, that's exactly why I use that phrasing.
That's really good, especially since if you think about it, at least with the number of people that I've come across in doing a lot of these negotiations, most people that I've talked to would prefer to be right than to actually get what they truly want. There's this ego piece that they don't want to feel like they're giving up something. And so I love that you framed it that way because then it completely takes that out of the equation. They don't have to worry about, oh, I'm going to get this number for principal. I've seen sellers hold on to properties where they are literally losing money and like their holding costs outweighs what the actual offer would have been, and they end up maybe not in the land space, but when I was wholesaling houses, they would lose the property just like on principle. They didn't want to take a penny less than what they said that they wanted. And so it's okay. They would rather lose their house. And so it's fascinating. Yeah, Matthew says they've been holding on to a number for so long.
So good.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So I love that. I love that.
Can I actually just add one more thing here?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in that vein, as we're finishing up the price objection here, when you get a seller who's really just stubborn, man, don't be afraid to go a little aggressive and fight them a bit. And what I mean by that is you've already lost the deal. Keep that in mind. So, you earn nothing by keeping peace or whatever. Okay. And I don't mean be a jackwagon. Don't be a jerk. But here's a line of questioning our team will go down. Be like, hey, man, what are you going to do if you don't sell the property? That might go to my kids. And honestly, a question we ask when people say that is, are your kids aware of like where the property is and what it takes to take care of it, make sure they know how to take on the property taxes? Do you have that lined up in your will? We've had 3 people tell us, actually, no, I don't. Thank you so much. I'm going to go call my estate attorney and get that added. And I'm like, hey, sweet. You know what? Even if we didn't get the deal, we helped a future investor not get the deal because of messy probate. I'm just kidding. We helped the child of a person get the property and it not be messy. You know what I mean? That stuff is so stressful when you lose someone.
Totally.
God, if we can help, that's awesome. Go down that, but let's say it's not going to kids and they don't really know and they don't have plans. I'd be like, listen, Kendall, it sounds like if you don't sell the property, you're just never going to get to use the money, which sucks. And you have this number but you just told me you've talked to 20 other investors and nobody else has offered you your $80,000. Nobody's lining up to buy your property or $80,000 or else it would have been gone by now. So help me understand, what are you waiting for? And just come at them. Listen, guys,
Yeah.
I don't know what, it's a wild card from here. I'm not going to tell you exactly how that conversation is going to go, but we have gotten deals out, right? So who are you looking for? Jesus to come back, baby.
If you're enjoying this episode of the Only Land Fans podcast, please let us know by subscribing and leaving a review. Now let's get back to the action. Yeah, it is really interesting because for me, whenever we come across those people, we still make an offer, even if it's not what they want it to be. And we'll still follow up unless they're like, no, don't ever call back again. But I actually like when they're stubborn because that gives me a little bit more ammunition when we do our monthly follow-up call. Hey, I know that you were waiting for that 80K. So did you get it yet? Is it sold yet? I know that you said people were beating down the doors to get you 80K for it. Have you? Because we've heard that objection as well too, right? I'm not going to take less than 80,000 because I have everybody that wants to pay $80,000 for my property. In which case I always say, why haven't you taken it yet? Because that's probably about 20K over the market value. While the market is where it is, you might want to take it and run. And then that will really get to exactly what they're waiting for, or at least give you some ammunition, right? Call them on it. I love playing hardball. If they're going to play hardball, and that comes back to that confidence point that you had earlier, like you have to know the value that you're bringing to the table. We're not asking them for a favor to give us their property or do anything that's doing a favor for us. Like we're looking to do a business transaction, a business deal with them. We're bringing value, they're bringing value. So it's not, please, sir, can I have some more? That's not the mentality that we're going into these calls with, right? Like you have to know the value that you bring.
Totally.
I think that's really good. All right. Next objection. We've done certainty, we've done price.
Let's talk partner spouse. You
Let's
guys
do
over
it.
here. I got to talk to my husband. I got to talk to my wife. That's what we're talking about.
Yep.
So let's dive in. We all know what
Okay.
the objection sounds like. Okay. There's a few different stages where I'm going to look for how to deal with this on the front end. All right. At the lead manager level, call number one, we're going to do it by verifying deed ownership. Hey, Kendall, just want to verify, are you the only person that's listed on the deed? No, my wife is as well. Okay, got it. Have you guys both already spoken about selling the property together? If yes or no, it doesn't matter. Try to schedule an appointment with both of them. So you can't really get that on the call, right?
Yes.
Now,
Yes. Yes.
once we're on the call, if you're already there, you just got to roll with what you got. Okay. So you can try to schedule another appointment with the wife. That's what I would do if I just get the objection later because I didn't deal with the obstacle ahead of time. But what that's going to look like is, hey, Kendall, I remember you mentioning like your wife's also on the property. In that vein, let me ask, what have you guys decided on it? Are you guys aligned in terms of selling the property? Have you both already spoken about this? Yeah, we're aligned. Okay, you're aligned. So you already have a number in mind. You already know what terms you would move forward with. Yeah, totally. Okay, got it. So now later on, when I'm like, dude, you said y'all were cool. And I'd be like, oh, wait, Kendall, you told me at the end of the day, you were the decision maker, though. And you can like use that against them and try to see if you can flare something up there. But because they're usually just using it as a smokescreen. If I'm talking to you and ahead of time, got it, have you and your partner already decided that you're like moving forward at a certain price? Yeah, we have. Okay, got it. And so if we came to terms today, we'd be comfortable like signing an agreement today. Yep. Okay, awesome. Just making sure. Sweet. So you do that ahead of time before you do the price objection. So you don't get the price drop, excuse me, so that you don't get a price objection, but they tell you it's a spouse objection. You think it's a price objection, and then they just ghost you because that's how that plays. That's how I put that. That one's a much quicker one to go through.
Yeah, buying time so they can just get off the phone. Yeah, we've all seen that. Awesome. What's the fourth one?
Fourth one is timing. So this one's a little sneaky. It depends. You can screen for it ahead of time or like deal with the obstacle. Hey, like just to make sure we're on the same page here, Kendall, y'all are comfortable selling your property here in the next 60, 90, 120 days. Would anything prevent us from selling it in that time? Yes, no, maybe. Make sure they're cool with it. Okay, awesome. And there's kind of two sides of the timing objection. One is so you can buy it fast enough. The other is so you can double close it. We got to know how to deal with both, but they're both just timing objections at the end of the day. I'm going to screen on the front end if I know I want to do it fast based on, hey, are you prepared to sell the property? I just kind of do it 90 days with everything. You prepared to sell the property within the next 90 days? Yes. Okay, awesome. Now I can do either one. Now, when we do get close to a double closing objection, typically I use price and double close as like a sliding scale. So if they want more money, a lot of times I can get them in a double close range, right? Not every time, not a majority of the time, but a lot of times. And so I can be like, oh, like I'll tie them down. Is price the only thing preventing us from working together? Right? Yes, it is. Okay, awesome. So just so I make sure I understand, if I get you the price that you're looking for, we could do the deal. Like nothing would stop us from signing an agreement today. No, nothing at all. Okay, got it. It looks like I actually might be able to get that to you. The terms just look a little different. You want to hear more about that? Sure. Got it. So boom, double close pitch, right? Hey, in this time we've gotten really good at buying property. We've also gotten really good at selling property, which means we're going to go ahead and leverage all these marketing platforms and blah, 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 right? All in
Yeah.
all, it doesn't matter for you. All the title's going to ask you is wire a check at the end of the day. And I know I talk really fast. Anybody that's listening to this podcast trying to listen to me at 1.25 speed, good luck.
Yeah, good luck. That's so good.
I have myself down on stuff too.
We're gonna put a transcript up on the show notes. That way everyone can read all of the brilliant words that you have said at their own pace, if need. So I do have a follow-up question for that. Coming back to the timing. So when we often think of timing objections, we think of they want to close sooner. Can you talk about how do you handle people that are like, yeah, I'll do this. I'll do this deal. I want to be closed and funded in 7 days. Because that's
Um,
how it works, right? I sign the paper, you send me a check, or I can go and pick up cash from you in some bowling alley parking lot and we're good. So how do you handle that objection where they want
bowling alley parking.
it's happened. That's why I say I'm pulling from experience here. There are people that think that's how it works, right? Like I
Yeah.
sign a check, I sign it, and now you give me cash. So can you
Totally.
talk a little bit about how you handle when people have a really 30 days in some cases might be pushing it, right? In terms of a 30-day close, depending on where you are, what types of issues a property has. But let's say they're like, listen, I know I've got a lien on this property. I've known it for 2 years or for 20 years rather. I still want to close in 7 days. How do you approach that?
So the first thing I would say is you just need to set expectations on the front end. And what I mean by that is before you get into price, you need to talk timing in your pitch. Hey, typically we're going to close on properties within 90 days. I say that on every pitch, right? So already they're time anchored. Now, that doesn't mean some people aren't going to bring it up after. That doesn't mean some people are going to be like, hey, why does this take so long? Whatever. I would ask, Kendall, can I ask, are you in a rush to sell your property? And a lot of times you're going to tell me,
Immediately.
some people
I
might
want
be in a
it
rush.
gone today.
I almost never get a yes out of that. So a lot of
Yeah.
people, no, I'm not in a rush. I don't need to sell it. Now, if they are, what I'll tell them is, listen, have you ever bought or sold real estate before? I just want to make sure like we're on the same page on how this works. If they say no, I educate them on how the title process goes. And so we need to inform a lot of times. We need to educate as salespeople. And in that vein, I will let them know, hey, here's how this typically goes. And I actually walk people through this after we get a contract signed a lot of times too. Is, hey, Kendall, just how this goes. After you and I sign the agreement, we're going to send it off to title. They're going to need to do what's called a title search to make sure everything's fine, make sure there are no liens on the property. I'm assuming it's not an issue, it's just part of due diligence. After that, like blah, 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 and we should be set to close. All in all, should take about 4 weeks. Do you have any questions about that? So I like to set that expectation. If people are aggressive though, and they want their stuff closed in 7 days, man, I'd ask them, I'd be like, okay, where are you getting 7 days? Let's like try to deconstruct where they're getting their number from. That's just what I want. Got it. Listen, I'm happy to try to push for that, but I want to be realistic, Kendall. I've never had a title company close in 7 days before, which actually isn't true. I definitely have. I will close as fast as this title company lets me, assuming there's no other issues. If I don't need a perk test or a survey ahead of time, right? If I do, again, you just need to educate, right? Because truth be told, listen, no investor is going to close on your property faster than me. And if we don't do this deal together, you're just going to be waiting for the next one. So however much time that takes for them to do their research, offer you some lower number and not actually close in 30 days. I'm a
Yeah.
jerk for throwing these other sellers under the bus. But also, man, sorry, the sun is a little crazy right here. I might go close my shades. I'm in a new office and I'm learning how to be at certain times here.
Yeah, we don't want you to burn your retinas. Do you want to go close your
Yeah,
shade?
here, give me a sec.
Yeah, sure thing.
I'm
Yeah,
here.
so Ajay, one of the things that I really like about this and is that your approach to handling a lot of these objections is really not, but they are proactive in terms of you have to frame and you have to set expectations. That's one of the best ways to handle objections is to handle them before they even come up. A lot of the framing, a lot of these sequences, what you bring people through, it's tying expectations down, it's setting up expectations that way you can go back to them. It's less of a reaction where it's okay, I just need a magic list of phrases to say when this comes up. It's really not that. It's making sure that you're setting up expectations before we even get to the objection, right? Because oftentimes that will squash the objection before it even comes up. So, one of the things that I did want to ask you is tell us what your thoughts are on the term motivated sellers. Let me give you some context.
Okay, please do.
So we have a lot of people from the wholesale house space that are now in the land space, right? Trying to get on the land game. And they deal with motivated sellers very often. The property is distressed, the house is distressed, they're in a financial distress situation. So can you talk a little bit about why that might not necessarily translate over to vacant landowners the way that we see that being represented in the house space? Like, I know some people that say there really is no such thing as motivated seller in the land space unless they are like about to lose it to tax foreclosure or something like that. But it might be a little bit more rare. So can you talk a little bit about that motivated seller? How do we make sure that we're only talking to the people that are ready to throw their properties at us?
Dude, I don't know. It's the short answer.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
I
I
have
get
done
it.
a lot of deals and I have a lot is relative. I had done enough deals and I have probably had three or four truly motivated sellers. One of which was a banger deal recently. We bought our first subject to deal. That's a story for a different day. But we
Writing it down because I do want to hear this story.
yeah, man, very few sellers actually need to sell their property. Okay. Could they use the money? Sure. But need to sell, not so much. Okay. And how we describe this, Tony Robbins says that there's two types of motivations. You're either running from pain or running towards pleasure. Okay. Which is like a desired end state, basically. And a lot of times we're trying to figure out what's the seller's desired end state. Remember earlier when I was like, hey, dude, if you like sold cars, you'd know what's the buyer's end state. They like want to buy a car to drive around in. You should probably ask some good questions. Do you have kids? If they don't have kids, they might get a Mini Cooper, sports car, two door. I don't know. Oh yeah, I've got six. All right, dude, let's go over to the Escalades and the Ford Expeditions, and I need eight seaters, right? And so you got to know your audience, is my point. In the same sense, like with desired end state, like I need to just know what the seller would do with the money, more or less. And even then, that doesn't mean every single time the seller is going to spend it. A lot of times they might just sell it and save it and not do anything. Like at the end of the day, we just need to make offers to property owners and we will get deals.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. I see a lot of people in the land space think, oh, if I don't have this hot list of motivated sellers, or if within the first 5 minutes of me talking to them, they're not like, take my property, I don't care how much you're offering kind of thing, that like it's not a deal. Versus you're going to have to educate, you're going to have to take them through the sequence, you're going to have to set expectations, uncover. Sometimes they might be motivated, but we don't know. They don't know that they're motivated. We have to uncover those motivations. I think that's a really interesting point to chat about. Are there people that are motivated truly? Yeah, there are, but I don't think that I personally don't think that they're like falling out of the rafters if you find a certain list of motivated sellers, unless it's again a tax foreclosure or something like that.
Totally.
Um, awesome, cool. So let's jump over to some call reviews. You want to do some call reviews,
Let's do some
Ajay?
call reviews, dude. While we're waiting on that,
Yeah.
I am happy. So, guys, a really good format is just like download the call off your stuff, upload it into a Google Drive, and then drop that shareable link and make it available to everybody. If you can drop that in the Zoom, super easy. I'm happy to tell the story about our subject to deal while we're waiting for somebody to drop a link.
Yeah,
So,
I do want to hear this sub two deal. Let's hear about it.
so man, it was back when we were doing Facebook ads. We're no longer doing them because maybe there aren't motivated leads, but there are really bad ones. We
Mhm.
were getting the most trash leads ever out of Facebook. It was like the worst properties and the worst areas and the worst people. I'm in the rough after 300 leads. We got one good deal. And it's funny how that goes. But we had this property, it's 212-acre ranch in northeastern Kentucky. And it had a house on it, 3 bed, 2 bath house. Okay. So a little unique, but like, guys, the value is really for the land. There's 50 acres of pasture land and 100 and whatever is left of just like good timber. And ran the numbers on it, and it just didn't make sense as a flip for what the seller needed. Super motivated guy though. Dude had a pregnant wife, had to move in with his in-laws in a different state, and just needed money so he could move out of his in-laws' house. I don't even know. Some wonky stuff was going on. And basically, this guy needed money bad. So he started at his asking price of 800K. And we ended up buying the deal for 418. Not only that, we took over the mortgage, which was 290. And then we split up the rest of his down payment in 2 payments. So 80K right now, and the rest in 5 months is basically just like 5 month balloon, no payments in between. And it is going on the market this Friday at a list price, I think 699, give or take. So we've got a solid $200,000 in spread, almost three. We're gonna have a fat realtor commission on it because it's a whitetail realtor, so 7%. They don't negotiate on that, but they're really good at what they do. I'm pretty confident they'll find somebody for us. And we're about to hit hunting season in the Midwest too, so it's a perfect time for a property like that. But 80K in, 200, 250 out. I'll take that deal every day of my life.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's really good, man. Keep us posted on how that starts rocking and rolling on the dispo side. Love that. So it looks like Marty has sent his call in. Marty, can you share with us, is this, because I know that Marty's doing a 2 call close sequence as well. Is this call 1 or call 2?
This is call 2.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And real quick, I just want to see how long this is.
It's fairly long, so any chunks of it you want to split out, I'm more than okay with that. Sorry.
That's all good. Don't apologize, man. We're just towards the end of time here, but we're gonna get some meat in. Don't you worry.
Thanks.
It's gonna save 30 seconds.
Hello?
Hi, is this May?
Yes.
Hi, May. This is Marty giving you a call. I believe you spoke to my acquisitions manager last week about your property here in Marion County.
Yes.
Perfect. Is now still a good time to talk about that? That she had set a time for us
Yes.
to discuss?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, great. So I just wanted to touch base with you. We looked it over, and so tell me a little bit about the property. Did you have plans to build here? Or are you just looking to sell it? How can we help you?
So what happened was I think I bought that land like 12 years ago.
Okay.
My original plan was to build a house there, but since I believe the prices are like really high, and
Right.
then I don't want to build it there if I don't live there.
Got it. So you're just looking to sell the property and kind of be done with it is your plan here?
Yeah, because, I live up here like northeast.
Sure. Yeah, what drew you to the property? Did you have plans to move to Florida, or it was going to be a vacation home or something?
So what happened was at that time, 12 years ago, right, a bunch of my friends, they also bought the land. So like
Right.
a few lots over there might be adjacent to each other or a little bit far away from each other, but we were planning to move there and build a house there, but it looks like
Right.
we're going to end up live up here in New York, New Jersey. So
I see.
I think that we're not going to do anything over there. So
No, that makes sense. If you guys aren't planning to move down there, then just holding on to it is not really a great strategy for you. It's just kind of something that you're not using right
Yeah.
now. Yeah. Got it. What would you look to sell it for? What are you trying to get for the property?
I ended up paying at the time is like even though $25,000 at the time I was in school and all those like 25,000 is a lot for me 12 years ago. And then at the time I paid 9% interest rate is pretty high too. If
Do you
I
still
get
have a mortgage
like,
on the property?
no, I already paid off I think sometime last year or the year before.
Okay. Got it.
So I'm thinking like if I get like over 50K, I'm not sure if that's the market price over there or not. If not, I can't sell it if I don't get it like at least 50K.
Got it. Okay. Have you spoken to a realtor or anyone about the valuation of the property and what things are buying and selling for in the area?
A lot of people like reach.
Wait. So Marty, we're 3 minutes in. I want to comment on a couple of quick things, man. Your first couple minutes, you actually sound really good. You did a good job asking for time. You sound like a normal human for the most part. There's a few things that maybe I would just be nitpicky on if we were diving in. Overall, though, you sound pretty good on the phones, man. The only thing I don't like asking if the seller is the person, especially if we've already spoken to that person once. So like at the very beginning, is this May? I would just be like, hey, May, it's Ajay. Just like sound assumptive and be there. And is now a good time to chat? Just dive right in, man. It just sounds like you belong and you fit in, and they're gonna be like, Ajay, who is that? I'm like, hey, you spoke to my team member Nikki 2 days ago, and you were talking about your property over in Palm Bay, Florida. Now a good time to chat about that. Another thing is you didn't really frame. You did a great job asking for time. Hey, is now a good time to chat? Yes. And then you dove right into what can you tell me about the property, right? Which is a great question, but you didn't really set the tone for what was happening in the conversation. And so you leave an opening for them to be like, what's your offer? What do you want? Or that sort of thing. And so that's where I like to set like, hey, Marty. So on these calls, it'd be about 10, 15 minutes long. And really, I just need to confirm some information and then we'll see if we can work out a deal. Sound good? Cool. So what can you tell me about the property? And then you dive right in. Okay. Do you have any questions on any of that so far, Marty?
No, that's really valuable. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sweet. You did a good job starting with past tense. What were your original plans? And why I wanted to pause is just I marked the timestamp. We were about 2.5 minutes into the call when we started talking their asking price. Hey, what were you looking to get on the property? Now we haven't made an offer yet, but we're like pretty early on to talk about money, in my opinion. It does sound like she's on the move or something's going on with her. She's driving or the grocery store or something. But we're talking price really early. I like to say we haven't earned the right to talk price with the seller until I like to say the 10-minute mark, man. So you said this was a long call. It's not the worst. It's honestly better if we don't talk price right away because the more rapport we can build, the more we can get out of our seller, basically. I have no sense of motivation. I don't really know why she wants to sell besides they like don't live there. But she also won't sell unless they get at least 60K, which seems wild. What's the property worth?
Properties in this area are selling for 20K.
Man, I thought you were about to tell me
I'm
like
trying to get it
200
like 10. Yeah.
and stuff. Got it. Okay, cool. Let's keep listening. Kendall, I know we're at time. Do we have time to go over or do we need to cut
Yeah,
off?
this is completely up to the amount of time that you've got. I want to be
Okay.
respectful of your time. As long as you're good, we're good.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Reached out to me regarding this. They didn't offer me the price. They offered me like up to, I think, around 40K. That's it.
You've gotten an offer for 40,000?
Yeah, they gave me like 38,000 and change, so it's almost 40. But I can't sell it. I'm gonna be.
I love that we've talked about 60 and then 40 and now 38. It's just funny when numbers get thrown around like this.
So I just want to give you a word of caution. It's always best to understand what properties are buying and selling for in your area before starting to figure out what you'd like to get in price for it. And this is like one of my passion pieces. I do hundreds of deals a year, and I try to help people figure out what their plans are for their properties like this, because so many people do this. They have plans to buy, plans to build that fall through, and they find out later that it's just not for them, or they don't.
So Marty, I'm going to pause, man. You're like teaching her and explaining to her and coaching her right now on how this works. I think we're a little early to be doing that. Again, a time to be like stiff arm people is like at the end after we've lost a deal. I wouldn't say we've lost it. She just has an absurd asking price. I would just be curious on the asking price, right? Did she just pull this out of thin air? And you're doing that when you're asking, did you talk to a realtor? But bluntly, bro, where did you get 60 grand? You didn't take 38? It's worth 20. Call them back. Dude, I'll do it for you. You're losing money right now. You're an idiot. Because if they're buying these for 20 grand, you should sell it, buy two more on the market, and then sell both of those to that person for 38 and rinse and repeat, baby. I wouldn't be a jerk like that to him. I'd be like, hey, I'm on Zillow right now, and I see the property next door listed at 20. Why would somebody offer you 38 when the neighboring properties are worth about 20? And dude, just be real. But again, I still wouldn't really be talking price, and I wouldn't be explaining or teaching at this point. There's a time and a place for it, but I think we're just too early on.
Got it. Thanks.
For sure.
Have any use for it. I try to help people understand what their plan is. So I can't always be the one to purchase it because it may not work out in price. but it's my job to help you understand the value, right? So properties in that area right now are only selling somewhere in the market of $20,000 to $25,000 total. That's unfortunate.
So you got ripped off at your 25K and 9% loan. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Stop the bleeding.
Yeah, sometimes I just try to tell them, like, I can't control what you paid for it or what the market's going for. I can at least help control what I can give you in terms of my offer.
Totally. And you sound super honest in this right now, man. So bonus points for that. You sound like you're genuinely trying to help her. You sound like a good person. You sound like you have integrity. Like, I'm hearing all that through the phone. If I was on the other side, I'd be like, this guy's not trying to scam me. He seems legit. So you sound good.
That's good, at least.
Yeah. She, on the other hand, should go call back that 38K offer, because it sounds like somebody just sent out a blind offer campaign, in my opinion, but potato.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I think later in the call too, I say, hey, if you've got that guy's number, why don't you put me in touch with him? Because I'll send you a referral fee if he closes on any of the properties I'm selling in that area, because that's above market value.
Sweet.
Where the market is right now. And it's a painful reminder to people that land in general is not a great buy and hold asset, because it does not appreciate the same way that houses and stocks and things like that do. Yeah. So when I look at it, I look at what's been on the market and for how long. And that gives me a good sense of what people are willing to pay for it, right? One here is listed for 30, market for 400 days. That's over a year. It's telling me the market's not.
Yeah, Marty. So we're in minute 5, man. You're just like coming at her right now. I know what you're doing. Okay.
Hungry for a deal is what I'm doing.
I love it, man. But dude, she's not gonna work with you. Like, I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm on the outs. Did you close the deal? Did you end up buying this?
We did not.
Okay, I was really hoping you told me you did, and like stuck
I know.
it. I was like, yeah, dude, we bought it for 8K.
I wish.
But listen, like, you're like trying to teach, you're educating, you're what's that? I need to be careful to not get canceled here. What's that term that people use? You're mansplaining. You guys are
right, a little bit.
And I say this with love, dude. Listen, when I do call reviews, I say this all the time. I take no pride in being good at sales, being better than anybody else here. And that's not at all why I'm here. This is just to serve you. And so what I would tell you here is just be curious, man. Pepper her with as many questions as possible. Get her to talk as long as possible. Make her feel like you're her nephew, so that she wants to sell you the property at a discount the same way she'd give her nephew a discount on her old Toyota Camry. Okay.
I love that. It's a great approach.
Yeah, so that's the goal, man. When you talk to Grandma, okay, Grandma, and like, how was that? Like, just hit her with questions and get her to talk, and she's going to like you the more that you do that. It's that simple. But I can already tell you at minute 5, she's not working with you because she thinks the property's worth too much. You're not going to tell her anything. She already knows everything, right? She thinks she's not selling it unless she gets under 60. I'd go aggressive towards the end. I'm actually really curious how the end of this goes, so I'm just going to skip forward.
The contract. They'll get you under contract.
And it's still you talking, Mark. I'm teasing.
Contract, and they'll come to you 3 days before closing and say, I need an extension and I need a reduction. That's not how I operate. It puts such a bad taste in everyone's mouth. That's why I'm being really transparent with what I can pay for it now, because I know that I can turn that around, and I don't want to waste your time. More realistically, I don't want to waste my time trying to get back on the phone with you to get that extension or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll send you the offer, and you can look at our website. I'd love for you to check that out to get a sense of how we operate and who we are. And if ever you're in the market to sell it again, I'd love to work with you.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
All right, great. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Okay, so thank you. Okay, bye.
Take care.
She was like, screw that guy. She's going to get off the phone and be like, oh my gosh, I'm teasing you, Marty, dude. I got love for you, man. You sound really good on the phones in terms of like your tonality. You sound stuff, which is good. Where I would encourage you, man, is just, this is a phrase my life coach gives me: be curious. If you can just come from a frame of curiosity, what does this woman want out of her life? What's going on in her life? If you can understand her, what would she do with money? Again, what is she going to buy with that money? You're going to be able to work with her more. So just be curious, man. Try to understand your sellers. I think this conversation could have been a lot shorter if, as soon as she said 60 grand, because I blah, 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 man, just like shift blame and make the first offer, right? I'm seeing investors in the area are paying like 8 to 11 for properties like these. What would you say to one of those investors? Oh, I'd tell them no. Got it. Well, guys, where are you getting 60, right? Is that the lowest you would take? Absolute lowest. Loop. Come back up. Hey, I'm an investor, so this is probably going to be, I can fight to get you to that top range. How valuable is a cash offer to you? How valuable is a quick close, right? Does that do anything for you? What would you do with an extra 10 grand in your pocket? Oh, nothing? All right. That sucks. She probably wasn't going to work with you from the get-go, but all those things are going to boost your odds of working with her. You just explaining to her that she doesn't know the market as well as you, which like, I know that's not, I'm saying this stuff in super blunt terms because that's what like hits the best. So again, this comes from love, but like you explaining the market better than her and you know what's going on and your property's not worth crap. Just like people generally don't respond to that. So you're telling her baby's ugly, man. And so that's tough without actually pointing out features of the property that could discount it. If it was like an access thing or utility thing or like a terrain thing, hey, did you know that your property's got XYZ? Fine, those are good discountable things. But if you're just like, dude, it's worth 25, the other buyers are going to screw you. Like, nobody responds well to that stuff, man. So do you have any questions on any of that, Marty?
No, I'm just going to have to go back and restructure my frame of thought on the whole thing. And I did definitely appreciate that feedback. Definitely.
Totally.
I try to educate where I can, but also I totally get what you're saying that I'm calling her baby ugly for sure. No, I get it.
And hey, you're doing great. I can tell like you're somebody who's gonna do the thing and you're pushing these forward and you're not afraid to talk to people. So you're gonna crush in this business, man. It's a couple of small tweaks and you're off to the races.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was really good. Just to give you a little bit of context, Marty's made, I think Marty now, what is it, like over 90 offers in the last 60 days or something like that. Like,
Wow.
he's
I
done a
need 5 more to hit the 100 mark.
Let's go, dude. You're crushing.
End of the week. I've got to get it by the end of the week. So
How many contracts do you have?
0.
No way.
Serious. None.
Huh.
And
It's been a struggle.
yeah, so I share that with you to give it a little bit of context. When I hear this, because I know Marty, when I hear this, I hear this is his 80th call where everyone has wanted $200,000 for a $20,000 property. And so that's Marty, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I hear in your voice when you're like, okay, I'm just going to cut straight to it. You're asking way too much. This and that, like that, to me, that's what it sounds like when I hear it. Would that be a fair assessment, Marty?
That would be fair for sure. I think this was a couple of days after I got my cease and desist order from the office building. I'm out in the back alley of Chicago trying to coordinate with this lady, and she just wasn't getting it. So I thought this was a fun one to send over.
Yeah. And what Ajay said earlier about how they are going to be making a decision based on emotion, right? That's why he talks a lot about what they're either running from pain or running to desire. Those are emotional things, right? Very rarely have I ever been on a sales call, and I might just be terrible at sales, but have I ever explained to a seller why they're wrong? And then they say, oh, you know what? You're right. I'll take less money. That's never happened to me. So you can't like logically explain to get them down. Now, I do think that there is a place for education and like explaining and helping them to understand why you position your number that way. But I think it has to be at the appropriate point as you've taken them through this emotional journey. The other thing, too, when I listen to this, I listen to the tone. I got a ton of information from the seller's tone, even when she just said, when you were talking to her, I could already tell in the first 3 minutes she was out. She was out of the conversation. So like listening for that tonality is so important. So when you're listening to call reviews and this is for everyone, I do this for myself. I don't just listen to how I'm saying things. Like I want to hear what is the response? How is this being received? How is the seller feeling from the words that I'm saying? Right? That is super important. And finally, the last point that I'm going to make is I had a mentor tell me that he or she who asked the questions control the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So we should always be asking questions. So I would really encourage you to take a look at what is it that you are asking her, or what is it that you are telling her, and how can you form that into a question? So you're asking a question, you're being curious, like Ajay is saying. I think that goes a really long way versus let me just lay down the letter of the law and tell you XYZ. Be curious. I love that. I actually have that written down. That's gonna be a new post-it on my wall. Ajay, thanks for sharing that.
Love it.
It's really good stuff. Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Marty, for sharing that. I know that it's a vulnerable thing to share seller calls, and I really appreciate that. And like I said, or like Ajay said, I'm in complete agreement. I think that you are a tweak away from getting some good stuff rolling. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you both for giving me that opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Ajay, I want to thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I know we went a bit over, but I want to thank you so much for that. Thank you, everyone, for calling in and asking fantastic questions. Ajay, I know that you've got an event coming up in September. Can you tell us a little bit about that event?
Yes, sir. September 27th and 8th here in Dallas, Texas. We
Yeehaw.
are running an event, yeehaw, baby, called the Land Scaling Summit. All right. You can figure out details at landscalingsummit.com. And Riri just said in Zoom, if you use code OLF, your boy Kendall put together a sweet deal. And so everybody's getting $150 off if they use code OLF.
Yeah, OLF.
OLF for only land fans. I am in Dallas, not South Carolina, Matthew. I'm sorry. We are doing the Scaling Summit here in Dallas. And basically, the premise is people talk about this concept of scale all the time. I want to scale my business. I'm trying to scale. I just need to scale up. Nobody even knows what that means. And so we're going to define what does scale mean and what are all the core ways we can do that between raising money, between using your staff better, between AI automation, between better branding, better dispositions process, because better sales, faster sales means more cash, means reinvestment in the business. So we're going to be talking about all these concepts that nobody talks about, or at least not enough. And so I'm just so excited to dive into this stuff, man. I'm so passionate about it. Kendall here is going to be serving on one of the panels at the event. Really cool thing we're doing is at the very end, we've partnered up with the Tim Tebow Foundation. And we're throwing a little gala. And so black tie gala, dress up. I'm trying to line up a super cool keynote speaker. Stay tuned for that announcement. But an excuse to get dressed up, network with land investors. And we're going to be fundraising money to fight human trafficking, disgusting, evil stuff that goes on in the world that you get to contribute to just by showing up to the event. The gala is included in your ticket price. So no reason to not come. Going to be super fun. Really looking forward to it.
Amazing. I'm super excited to be part of this event. I know that anything that Ajay attaches his name to is going to be incredible, and I am just so thankful that I get to be part of. This is like your first event like this, right? So this is the OG thing. So if you want to say I was there when Ajay launched his very first event, this is the event to come to. Super excited. I'm just honored to be able to be, again, attending, let alone participating as a panelist. So I can't wait. And plus, my gosh, like what an incredible philanthropic venture as well of being able to give back in this black tie gala, which I'm super excited about. So again, check it out. It is www.landscalingsummit.com. Again, Ajay has graciously gifted our Only Land Fans community with $150 off of the price of your ticket to that event using code OLF. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Any other thing you want to share about this event, Ajay?
Just that I'm super pumped for it, man. I really think it's going to be one of a kind. I don't think anybody that goes is going to regret it. It's getting closer and closer to sold out every day. So I'd encourage you guys, sign up for tickets ASAP. Would love to see everybody here there. It's going to be a blast, man.
Yeah, very special group of people. I've taken a look at the speaker list already, and it's like top-notch land rock stars. So absolutely come on over. We would love to have you. All right. So that being said, again, I want to thank everyone. Ajay, I want to thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Marty, thank you for sharing your sales calls with us. Thanks so much, everyone. Ajay, always a pleasure. You guys have been fantastic. We will catch you in the next one. Until then, be safe, take care, and catch you later. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
If you're interested in hearing from other seven-figure land flippers about how they've started and run their businesses, then join us at onlylandfans.com. Looking forward to seeing you there.